carrying on. So the hearing of the dead is affirmed. So the dead do hear. But in the dead in the barzakh, after passing away, do they have any kind of spiritual actions? The scholars have discussed that. Do they have any kind of spiritual actions? So the following narrations, Anas bin Malik said, the Prophet ﷺ said, your actions are presented to your deceased close family, relatives and family. If there is good, they become happy, and if it is other than that, they say, Oh Allah, do not give them death until you guide them like you guided us. So this is the deceased making dua about for their family members. This is the Muslim Imam Ahmad, and it contains an unknown narrator. So there's one narrator which is unknown, but it's supported by other narrations. That's why I'm mentioning it. Abu Ayyub al-Ansari said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, your actions are presented to your close relatives and family in the afterlife. If there is good, they become happy and say, Oh Allah, this is your generosity, so complete your blessings upon him and let him die upon this. So they're making dua, the deceased person making dua. Bad actions are also presented to them. They say, Oh Allah, inspire him with good actions which you will be happy with and will draw him closer to you. Al-Haythami said, it was narrated by Tabarani. It contains Muslim bin Ali, who is weak. It is, however, narrated by Ibn Abi Dunya in Al-Manamat in mawquf form, without this narrator Maslama. So both of those two narrations, there's some slight weakness in discussion about them, but they both support each other and give the meaning that the deceased person do make dua for their relatives after passing away. The Prophet ﷺ said, mentioned the exiting of the soul and said regarding the soul of the believer, they will bring the soul of the newly deceased to the souls of the believers who will rejoice just as you, there's a typo there, just as you rejoice over someone returning from a journey. And they will ask him, so deceased person goes and meets the other believers. And they ask him, what did so-and-so do? What happened to so-and-so? So the deceased, Zayd dies, and he meets Amr and all these other people. And they ask him, what happened on earth with what's happening with those people? Okay, and some of them will say, leave him alone, for he was in the sorrow of the world. If it is said, has he not come to you? They will say he has been taken to the fire. Right? What that means is that Zayd, imagine a person Zayd dies, he goes and he meets these deceased souls. They say to him, what happened to Bakr? And he says, Bakr died before me. Did he not come through to you? And then this narration mentions, then people who ask him the question, Zayd, who's been died, then they realize, okay, if Bakr died before you, then that means he didn't come to us. That means he ended up in the fire. May God protect us. And this is in Nasa'i with some additional wording. Ibn Hibban, Al-Hakim, who graded it Sahih, and Zahabi agreed. And Iraqi said it was good. So this is a narration from the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? So the previous narration talked about some of the deceased being presented actions. Here, obviously, they weren't presented actions. There's a discussion about some of them are presented actions and aren't. And I believe it's going to be mentioned later on about some of the deceased, when they passed away, they kind of absorbed or they're busied with their own issues in the next world. May God protect us. So they don't have, they pay no attention to people in this world. Anyway, so that's one narration. Okay. So the souls meet after death and they ask about what's happening on earth. And basically they're having a discussion. There's a discussion going on. It's not when you die, there's this blackness, darkness, and then you wake up on the day of judgment. It's not that. There's a whole world. Another narration, Abu Ayyub al-Ansari said, when the believer's soul is taken, it is greeted by the people of mercy, from the slaves of Allah, just as a person of glad tidings is greeted in this world. They say, look after your brother, so he may rest. So they kind of welcome him, for he was in great distress. They ask him about what happened to so-and-so. What did so-and-so do? Did so-and-so marry? Which is interesting. Yeah. If they ask him about a man who died before him, he says, he died before me. So once again, that same example, to which they reply, to Allah we belong and to him we return. For he has been taken to the fire and how bad it is. So once again, that same scenario, they ask about someone, they said, and so Zayd dies, He meets these deceased souls and they say, what about Bakr? And he said, you died before me. Then they realize they didn't meet Bakr. That means he's been taken elsewhere. This is in Al-Zuhd of Ibn al-Mubarak. Al-Iraqi said that his chain was good. So that's authentic narration. So that means the dead do meet each other, they do talk to each other, and we mentioned previously they make dua. Right. Karamat